Imagine a time when students turned against their teachers, children against their parents, and ancient temples were torn down brick by brick. A time when a single book, bound in red, held more power than any law. This wasn't a dystopian novel. This was China during the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution, a decade of turmoil that reshaped the nation and left scars that are still healing today. So, how did one of the world's oldest civilizations find itself in such a radical storm? To understand, we have to go back to the early 1960s. The Great Leap Forward, Mao Zedong's ambitious plan to rapidly industrialize China, had ended in catastrophic famine. Millions had perished. Mao's prestige within the Communist Party was at an all-time low. He took a step back from day-to-day governance, and more moderate leaders like Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping stepped in. They implemented pragmatic economic policies, allowing small private plots for farmers and reopening markets. The economy began to recover. But for Mao, this was a betrayal. He saw these policies as a retreat from socialist principles, a dangerous slide back towards capitalism. He feared that a new elite, a bourgeoisie within the party itself, was emerging and would dismantle the revolution he had dedicated his life to. Mao was a master strategist, and he knew he needed a force powerful enough to bypass the party establishment that was sidelining him. He found that force in the youth. In May 1966, Mao and his allies, including his wife Jiang Qing, officially launched the Cultural Revolution. The stated goal was to purge society of impure elements and revive the revolutionary spirit. The first targets were in the cultural and educational spheres. Posters appeared on university campuses denouncing professors as bourgeois reactionaries. Students were encouraged to bombard the headquarters, to challenge all forms of authority. This call to action ignited a firestorm. Young people, who had grown up idolizing Chairman Mao, formed paramilitary groups known as the Red Guards. Armed with Mao's Little Red Book of quotations, they became the enforcers of this new, radical ideology. Their mission was to destroy the four olds: old customs, old culture, old habits, and old ideas. What did this mean in practice? It meant chaos. Red Guards stormed through cities, changing street names, smashing priceless antiques, and burning books. Temples, monasteries, and historical sites, which had stood for centuries, were desecrated and destroyed. Anything that represented China's rich, pre-communist past was a target. Individuals with bad class backgrounds, landlords, intellectuals, businessmen, even those with relatives overseas, were publicly shamed. They were forced to wear dunce caps, their faces smeared with ink, and paraded through the streets in brutal struggle sessions, where they were beaten and forced to confess to fabricated crimes against the revolution. The education system ground to a halt. Universities closed for years. Instead of studying math or literature, students studied Mao Zedong thought. Experience was valued over knowledge. Teachers, once respected figures, were among the first and most frequent victims, humiliated and attacked by their own students. The cult of personality around Mao reached incredible heights. He was portrayed as a godlike figure, the red sun in our hearts. Loyalty to Mao was the ultimate virtue, and any perceived slight could lead to dire consequences. As the movement escalated, it spiraled out of control. The Red Guards themselves fractured into rival factions, each claiming to be the most faithful interpreter of Mao's will. These factions battled each other for control of cities and provinces, often with real weapons stolen from army barracks. China teetered on the brink of civil war. Daily life became a landscape of fear and suspicion. A casual remark could be reported by a neighbor or even a family member, leading to interrogation and punishment. Trust, the very fabric of society, was shredded. By 1968, the chaos was so severe that even Mao realized he had to rein it in. He used the People's Liberation Army to restore order, disarming the Red Guards. But what to do with these millions of radicalized and now disillusioned young people? The solution was the down to the countryside movement. Over 17 million urban youth were sent to remote rural areas to learn from the peasants. For many, this was a harsh awakening. They went from being the vanguards of the revolution to performing back-breaking labor in primitive conditions, their education and futures completely derailed. This generation would later be known as the Lost Generation. While the most violent phase of the Cultural Revolution ended around 1969, the political infighting and instability continued. The Gang of Four, led by Mao's wife Jiang Qing, wielded immense power, purging their political rivals. This period of intense political struggle and uncertainty lasted until Mao's death in September 1976. The moment Mao died, the power dynamics shifted dramatically. Less than a month later, the Gang of Four were arrested, marking the official end of the Cultural Revolution. The nightmare was finally over. The new leader, Deng Xiaoping, himself a survivor of the purges, began to steer China in a completely new direction. He initiated the reform and opening up policy, introducing market principles and re-engaging with the world. It was a complete reversal of the isolation and radicalism of the Maoist era. The legacy of the Cultural Revolution is complex and deeply painful. The death toll is estimated to be anywhere from hundreds of thousands to several million. Countless cultural treasures were lost forever. An entire generation lost their chance at an education. The event created deep wounds within families and communities that have taken decades to heal, if they have healed at all. Today, the Cultural Revolution is a sensitive topic in China. While the Communist Party officially declared it a grave blunder, detailed public discussion is often discouraged. Yet its shadow looms large. It serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of personality cults, political extremism, and the destructive power of mob hysteria. It was a decade that tested the limits of human cruelty and resilience, a traumatic chapter that profoundly shaped the path China has taken to become the global power it is today. Understanding this period is not just about looking at China's past. It's about understanding the forces that continue to influence its present and future. So, what do we make of it all? The Cultural Revolution wasn't just a political campaign. It was a storm that tore through classrooms, temples, and even families. Mao wanted to shape a new China, but the cost was chaos, fear, and a society forced to start over. And yet, out of that chaos, China eventually found a new path. The echoes of those years still shape its rise as a modern superpower today. History teaches us that revolutions don't just rewrite governments, they rewrite people's lives. And China's story reminds us how quickly a nation can be remade, and at what cost. What do you think? Was the Cultural Revolution a tragic detour, or a necessary step in China's rise? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another deep dive. I'm Mystic, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into a critical moment in modern history. If you found this video insightful, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next exploration. See you next time.